Yeah. All right. Let's call this meeting to order at 7:02 p.m. Please rise for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic which stands God.
Please join me in a moment of silent reflection. Thank you. Sunshine Law notice. In accordance with the provisions of the Open Public Meetings Act, public meetings may be held in person or by means of communication equipment to include streaming services and other online meeting platforms. This meeting is being held in person and through the Zoom meeting platform being broadcast from Borough Hall, 748 River Road, Fairhaven, New Jersey. Public participation for this regular council meeting of November 27, 2023 is available by call-in phone number or through web conference Zoom. Members of the public will be on mute until it is time for questions or comments, which will be announced. At that time, the public has the opportunity to question or comment by phone or through Zoom by the raise hand button and will be called on at the appropriate time. Notice of this meeting was included in the schedule of meetings, which was adopted by resolution number 2023-13 and sent to the Asbury Park Press, the Two River Times, and the Star Ledger on January 6, 2023, posted on the Borough website, the Bulletin Board in the Municipal Building, and has remained continuously posted as required under the statute. With adequate notice having been given, the Borough Clerk is directed to include this statement in the minutes of this meeting. Allison, may I please have a roll call?
Council members Cole.
Here.
Hoey.
Here.
Koch.
Here.
La Barbera.
Here.
Neff.
Here.
Rodriguez.
Here.
Thank you. We are going to start off with the champions. And speaking of champions, quick update, RFH is up 14-7 with 10 minutes to go in the fourth quarter. All right, we got 8U and 11U. Right? 8U, 11U. I'm going to ask if we could start with all the coaches coming up. Whoever's here, Eric Romaglino, Ron Christie, Joe Jerry, Troy Medina, Andrew Sobel. Yeah, get up. Sean Williamson, Jay Bartz, James Harvey, Jared Nathanson, and Andrew Sobel again. I think we're going to start, and especially from all the baseball players. Let's give your coach a run. Okay, so what we have here is a proclamation from the Borough of Fairhaven. Every single player is going to go home with one of these today. It incorporates both teams at the same time. So what I'm going to do, actually going to hand out, try and eyeball half of them, and you guys can hand out to your players as I name them. The same on this side. And I will read aloud. Whereas the 11U and 8U Blue Diamond baseball teams each won their 2023 season, including their championship games. And whereas the 11U team had a fall season record of 9-6-2, and the team as a whole since inception has won over 70 games. The 8U fall ball team had a record of 11-0 this season. And whereas the players, coaches, parents, and supporters have all come together in making true championship teams. And whereas the dedication, hard work, long hours of practice, mutual support, and commitment of the players and coaches exemplify the pride and heart of the 11U and 8U Blue Diamond baseball programs. And whereas, as I call your name, please come up, shake your coach's hand. You can start the line up. I'm going to start with 11U. We already named our coaches. Well, I'm jumping down below, but I'll do that anyway. Chef Barber. Johnny Vanello. Derek. Young man spends more money at the basketball hoop at the Fireman's Fair than Kevin Griffin. Donovan Hendrickson. Mr. Carly. Dylan K-pop. Oh, Gage Kusich in the house. Barstead. Roy Medina. Great quality. Right. You want to get you a new personal? Sure. Sure. I didn't ask you. So cool.
Yeah.
Hey, are we ready?
Yeah.
All right, let's start it off with Bryce Forrest. God, Hugh Connolly. Kevin Harvey. Alexander K-5. Evan Coonan. Mascarena. And Mascarena. Rocco Nathanson. Bill Newton. Morning. Okay. And Snowball. Williamson. Ethan Diamond. Stand up. So I just want to finish it off. This ended by saying you should be honored for your hard work, talent, dedication, and commitment for the development of our youth to the remarkable teams. That's for the coaches. So once again, to the coaches. We're going to take a moment, as someone that spent this entire weekend hours away from home watching my kids play sports, let's all give a round of applause to our parents.
Yeah.
The recognition and celebration of these championship teams serve to bring our community together in honoring these players and their coaches for a phenomenal baseball season resulting in outstanding records and championship titles. So it's my expectation, I want to make sure you all hear this, that next around November 27th, we're in here celebrating the 9U and 12U championship seasons. Everyone understand? You don't have to leave, but this is usually the point everyone does. Yeah.
Last year. Guys, see you later.
Thank you. Much time.
Under 5 minutes. I just threw like okay. Give them another minute to figure it out.
They're good. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, we'll hit on it.
Lots to do.
We have time.
Yeah, unless, yeah. I have some notes.
Yeah. We'll get at it.
Like I
All right. Moving along, workshop session, Bicentennial Hall, Councilwoman Cole. Are you ready to discuss?
Yes, I think I'm gonna be tag teaming with Councilman Borough.
Councilman Robert.
On the heels of our last council meeting where we reviewed a memorandum of action from the Historic Preservation Commission, we spoke to really two items. One was the update for what we know as the maintenance and improvement plan, which is a kind of a 10-year guiding document that would help to sort of set forth a maintenance plan ongoing for Bicentennial Hall, as well as some outstanding, we'll call them punch list items, which is work that I think we all recognize as outstanding items at Bicentennial Hall. But on the heels of that memorandum, we talked at the last meeting about next steps. I volunteered to reach out to the original author of the maintenance and improvement plan, which is Mr. Alexander Pavlov, well-known preservation architect. I was able to confirm a few things: his availability, his interest, which is endearing to me. He's in the later stages of his career, and at one point his firm had 2,500 people and multiple offices. His firm is now made up of about 10 or 12. I assume the 12 have to do with a couple part-time personnel, but he has really a complete team. He's actually taken the time to drive by Bicentennial Hall, is very familiar with our this historic structure in Fairhaven, and is interested. He also has the capacity to do the work, which was something we weren't sure of. With that in mind, I would like to suggest that we kick off a discussion having to do with what is the feeling of council, what is the consent from this body as to what we want to accomplish, and I'll toss it over to Councilman Robert Barrett to round it out.
Yeah, sounds good. And the other thing that we put together was a draft plan of how we're going to address ADA, non-ADA components, punch list item, ADA components, right, discerning who the key stakeholders are, to include historic commission, potentially loop it in Fish Chapel because of the partnership that we've been building over time with them and the historical significance. I think the most important piece, and I love the idea of the historical maintenance plan. I think an important piece is to ensure that we keep in scope what those historical pieces are and what's not. So we can take advantage of his expertise and specifically where it would have the biggest impact. Some of the next steps that we've tossed around is pending today is a follow-up discussion, getting some key stakeholders together, and sitting down with Matt Cronin. And the timeline that we talked about was looking to award the project, right? Which means drawings are done and we authorize a bid, all that award at the end of Q1 of 24, and then have construction start at Q2 of 24. We tossed around probably 3 to 6 month lead time, right? Depending on what the final scope is. So, yeah, that's.
Can I ask a question? When you talk about Q1 and 3 to 6 month lead time, right now you're just talking about the improvements that we have approved,
Yes.
correct? Based on ADA compliance and all of that.
ADA compliance, and then the list of punch list items remains to be seen what that is inclusive. But there are items that are beyond repair. There's leaking roof, gutters, water feeds the basement. So there are a key list of items that have to get done to get the building to maintain, I forget the word we were using.
But
But
stable.
stable into a level of maintainability, right? Right now.
We
it's
don't
not
know
there.
what those are right now.
We have a list.
We have a sense of what some of those are, and you're right, it's probably not, we don't know the cost of each of those items
Right.
on the list.
Right.
And to Councilman Lovera's point, some of them are maybe more preservation oriented, such as addressing stained glass windows, for example. That slightly more specialized, and we don't know what that might cost. We also don't know what it would cost to make sure the basement is watertight, but obviously these are things that would fall under the category of deferred maintenance, which cannot linger ongoingly without significant interventions, what would be far more expensive than addressing what we know is a problem now.
Okay.
I did reply to the draft that Councilman Lovera sent out today and made comments and did copy Rich Gardella. As you will recall, Rich did do a punch list several years ago where he had the ancillary items at $180,000 approximately. I think from my perspective, it's important that we get the ADA work that's been approved by the CDBG grant in the $184,000 out to bid as per Rich and Matt Cronin, and make a decision then from the governing body's perspective on who you want to use as a professional, what you want to cover and how you want to put that out to bid separately. Or not, you could just get 2 quotes on each thing if you decide to go that direction.
Are you suggesting, so I think I'll back up and say it would be ideal if we could complete both bodies of work, say, for example, this time next year. With the idea that all the repairs will be in place and we'll know what the maintenance horizon looks like so that the budget in 2025 reflects whatever those maintenance costs will be. That are obviously going to be much less after this initial investment is made. Are you suggesting that we do things sequentially?
Yes, I regardless of the timing of the balance of the work at Bicentennial Hall, based on the timing of the grant, which was already approved by the grant, what we have sitting out there and the fact that Matt Cronin and Rich Gardella already have that scope of work, pretty much complete based on their last minute, that it would make the most sense to go out to bid on that initially. And
Yeah.
then decide your professionals and your scope of work for the balance and either go out to bid on that separately, depending on the scope of work, you might decide, hey, we're not gonna go out to bid, we're gonna get 2 painters to give us a quote, or we're, until you decide those items that are over and above that, how you proceed with professionals and going out to bid remains to be seen. But you're very
So-
clear on the CDBG piece. First of all, they have to approve it. They have to approve the bid. And if we start, we got into this originally with them when we tried to separate the grant versus the non-grant, and then the governing body ultimately decided they only wanted to award what the grant covered. So I think it's important that we keep that separate and tied to the grant, get their approval. And then ultimately, you might even have to get SHPO's involvement, some of this other stuff. We already have it for the grant. There's no point to me in holding up that work.
Oh, I agree. I don't think this should hold it up. But I also don't think that we should be delaying any of the other.
I don't disagree with you from the fact that some of this stuff definitely needs to be done, but that's really up to the governing body.
Mhm,
And the timing and the process for that is also up to the governing body.
mhm.
So, putting the initial, CDBG work out to bid,
Oh,
as
yes.
we already have it conceptualized, then deciding how you want to handle it both, whether you put a committee together or whatever you decide of stakeholders. I'll participate that as needed, as will Rich, and then you can go from there. On the rest of it.
Well, I can understand why, I'm sure there's a lot of things going on right now too, so you're probably feeling those, but then the problem I have with delay, is I heard you say two things. I heard you said, well, I'll just get out of our discussion here. I heard you, Teresa, suggest delay. Which would mean the ADA continues, and which is good. We should, that work should continue to play out. I have some real concerns about waiting to do the work that is currently festering, particularly the water intrusion in the basement. I don't see the advantage of, at least for the building, I don't see the advantage of waiting until the ADA work is.
I didn't say have you wait till it's completed, don't get me wrong. My point is that you should get that out to bid, and then decide how you want to handle the balance of it. The governing body might decide that the waterproof in the basement is a top priority and might want to go out and get two quotes and do it. You have $350,000 in a bond ordinance for Bicentennial Hall, so there's no shortage in funding. But ultimately, what is funded above and beyond the ADA improvements that are grant funded is really up to the governing body.
Well, I think it's what we're here to discuss.
Yeah, so what I'd like to propose is I'd like to have some type of meeting, and I think there's two concurrent critical paths, I'll call them, right? And the one concurrent critical path is getting the ADA stuff going and out to bid and done. The second concurrent critical path is those punch list items that we need to get the building stable and up to that maintainable level. They should be done at the same time.
Well, that
agree.
list that.
But not in the same bid.
Not in
No.
the same bit, fair, agreed.
That list that, or assessment that Rich made, and that was maybe what, 3 years ago, 4 years ago?
I'm gonna say give or take 3 sounds close.
That may need to be revisited to make sure that it's still current, that.
Yep.
That,
Absolutely. I'm not saying it doesn't
and I
happen.
know we have funds for it, but I don't think it should hold up what we're doing with ADA. I think we should proceed with that now.
Agreed, I think we're all, yeah.
Yeah. So the decision point is, if we want to solicit a proposal from Mr. Pavlov. To work with the stakeholder group to identify. The updates that are necessary for that report, which would then serve as a guiding document for the Historic Preservation Commission and this body. For 10 or so years to come, it'll tell us what's, in 5 years, look for patches on the roof in the northeast corner based on the tree cover. Yeah, I'm being specific, but to explain that there's some very granular level guidance we'll have, which will be helpful for our engineer, the HPC, this body, and the DPW. And they will tell us when and if we need to look for problems in the horizon and what sort of professionals we may or may not need. So that's one decision point for us tonight. Once we do hire Mr. Pavlov for the report, then we'll also be able to begin to round out the scope of work that would be necessary to complete the punch list. As you point out, it's not complete. I don't think it's extensive, but it isn't complete in its current form.
Yeah, and if we do give professional services to help with reassessing the needs of Bicentennial Hall, is that covered under that bond that we have, that $350,000?
You could use it, the soft cost portion to
Okay.
hire a professional. You either have to get proposals from more than one, or and appoint them relatively fair and open, or you could go non-fair and open if you get a proposal from one and you're pleased with. Did he give you an hourly rate or anything?
He gave me his hourly rate, but that's not a complete rate sheet. Since he has a whole team, they're all at different rates. He's obviously higher than everybody else.
And honestly, in all honesty, I'm not certain how much of the work that, I understand the report, and I don't know if everyone's read the report, but we can certainly circulate it if you haven't, the one Tracy's referring to. But I'm not so sure if everything that's on that list, for argument's sake, waterproofing a cellar or painting the building needs architectural input. You know, because,
Exactly.
it's not necessarily architectural in nature. So we'd almost, if you want to get a proposal, you'd almost have to identify the scope of work you're looking for a proposal for. Either that or just take the hourly rate and then not exceed. That's really up to you guys.
I think, is there, oh, go ahead.
If I can throw something there, I would like. I'd like to move forward to get a proposal to see what the scope of work would be, right, and the cost. And to have a meeting, me, Tracy, Kristen, Teresa, Rich, to sit down and kind of talk through. What that concurrent path to would look like, right, and the steps that we would take. Right, look at the updated punch list, discern what requires Pavlov's eyes versus not, right, all those little details. We give Matt Cronin the green light and move forward the ADA, get the CDs together, let's get out to bid, right, get that going. And we'll continue to come back here to provide updates as we go, and if there's a key decision point that arises, bring it here.
Mhm.
What do you think?
I think it's a great plan. I think it's a good first step too, because we do need to flush out a few things. I feel requesting proposal from Mr. Pavlik is the next right step. And that's just a proposal for the updated maintenance plan. That initial site visit will start to identify what he's gonna have to put in that document, which is the product he'd be hired to produce for us. But it'll also start to expose some of the things that may need to go in that other scope of work.
Yeah.
How we do that, to your point, Teresa, would depend on what those work items are. Okay,
Depending on how it comes in, would another proposal be needed?
And he's a licensed professional. If they decide to go non-fair and open, they wouldn't have to get a second proposal.
okay,
You know,
that's good to
You
know.
certainly could ask Matt Cronin as a courtesy since he's already doing some work there, but that's really up to you and the district.
Yes, and to do as a gut check if we need to, yeah, that's fine. All
Okay.
right, cool. So we'll coordinate with Kristen,
Mhm.
coordinate with you, get something going in the next couple of weeks, and we'll come back to government by an updated plan at the next meeting.
That's great.
Great, thank you. Moving along, this is the public comment on agenda items only portion of the meeting. Please stand and identify yourself by clearly stating your name and address for the record. Please observe a time limit of 3 minutes. Is there anyone in the public with an agenda item only? Yes. Come up, Rick.
Evening, Mr. Mayor, Council,
Hello.
Counselor. I'm Brian Rice. For all you who don't know me, 45 Maple Avenue, Captain Fisherman, Waterman. I took a look at your proposed ordinance for the dock. So, couple of things. Have you consulted with the state? Does the state DEP consent with the restrictions that the pier, or you would have to approve these restrictions for a public pier? The restriction of night fishing consistent with public trust doctrine. What is the nexus between these restrictions and public resources or access to this public resource? And why a borough's ideal cannot restrict access for fishing through unreasonable parking restrictions, which you all may remember that case. For example, in Fairhaven Bar, lawful activity already permitted by the state, doesn't the state fishing regulations permitting rules supersede the local rules? That was kind of a rhetorical question, as I know the answer. So for me, it's very disconcerting that you guys would consider such restrictions on the dock. We've talked a lot about it in private. That it just basically, it's blatant that you don't want those people to come fish and crab off the public dock. I don't know who can, if you put this in, it's not gonna hold up, chances are. To restrict it to one cooler, I'm not gonna put my lunch with the live crabs, just doesn't make sense. I don't know. Chief McGovern will come down and measure coolers to make sure they're 30 quarts. But I can go down with my 330 quart cooler full of soda, smoke a cigar, sit on my chair, as long as I don't have a fishing rod or crabbing equipment, is the way that I read this. So it just seems extremely discriminatory towards people that fish and crab. A lot of these people that come to this town to do it are doing it for subsistence. They don't come here, it's not commercial. I've heard that thrown around. They're not coming to the dock to commercially crab and fish. I know that 100%. I'm friends with people that have been down there for over a decade. For instance, a guy comes from Jersey City, his kid's was 4 years old when he started coming down there, would wake his old man up at 4 in the morning and come down to Fairhaven to fish off the public pier. I think we're losing a big part of our community. I have talked to Mr. Mayor about it. I think to put a time restriction, just like any other public open space in town, I believe it's sunrise to sunset, would be adequate. I do monitor the dock 24/7. I have a camera on my dock next door that happens to have a view of the dock. The most use is me with my kids camp for 9 weeks. We have 12 campers every week, like you all know about it. Some of your kids have been there. We clean it before and after, every time. I've talked to Teresa a few times. We have the cans that go out, they're lined. There is a garbage issue down there, but again, it's a town issue that we need to, kind of address. And we have, right, Teresa, to a point. The cans get filled, they have to be empty. The old chicken is disgusting. I wish there was a way, and I believe there is an ordinance in the state, and I'll look it up, that you cannot use mammals or birds or whatever as bait. Okay, that may be something, but again, it's an enforcement issue from the state, not us. Just like it was brought up to possibly have a permit to fish and crab, not gonna, the state won't approve it. It's already governed by the state. So again, if anybody has questions, they want to talk to me, I'm an open book. I know a lot about this stuff. It's my life. It's been my livelihood for 20 years. I am a licensed captain, as most of you know. I've lived there for 54 years. My family, 3 generations, I'm the 4th generation in town. Had to deal with my old man last meeting. I'm sorry for that. But I watched the video. So, a couple of things came up. The crab nets, it's an issue, right? 20-foot crab net. They need them to scoop the crabs down on the pilings. Simple solution that my son came up with. Put some PVC pipes down there and they can stick them in the pipe, right? Just like a rod holder on a boat. It's not rocket science there. I think there's some things that we can do to work together to make it more friendly to somebody walking down there, right? As a town resident or whatever. So I just wanted to bring that up. I think that I'd love to work together, come up with some solutions, but I think this is way overly restrictive and downright prejudiced. I think it's just fun.
Thank you for your time, Brian. Anyone else in the public with a public comment? Agenda items only?
Great answer right there. So I'd like to agree with Mr. Rice in terms of the hour. I think 9 p.m. is just kind of an arbitrary time. I think sunrise to sunset, like every other park in the municipality, seems like a logical thing. I think that's at least no one that needs sunset. Sunrise. The other thing, couple other things. So on the consent agenda is approval of the DPW. I just wanted to know where the bids came in relation to our latest cost estimate.
Yep, and not consent agenda, it's its own item on old business, so it's not gonna be under the,
Thank you.
yeah. Mr. Mayor, do you mind if I answer?
Absolutely.
So,
I don't know whether this is the time, because I know it's coming up later, but this is.
I was gonna go into, but I could do it now or do it
No,
later.
that wrap on your finger isn't meant to mean anything, is it?
It's a little Thanksgiving.
All
Oh,
The lowest responsible bidder came in at 3.08 million, cost estimate was 4.5.
Beautiful.
So 1.5 million less.
Beautiful.
That takes our total cost avoidance at over $12 million compared to the original.
Perfect. So my next question was the cost estimate for the environmental analysis, environmental work that we're having done. Where does the $28,000 come into our estimate? Was it estimated or?
Correct.
Well, that's resolution's been amended. And a new copy we have on the dais. We already awarded the 28.4 along with a second version. And all we're doing with the resolution that's on there tonight, and the attorney was part of the telephone call with the attorney for the engineer and the architect, is appointing Collier's Engineering Design as the designated LSRP for the police department, community center, and Department of Public Works for the duration of construction and or renovation projects. And that Collier's Engineering Design will submit an additional proposal for any future scope of work that may be required at the sites.
Translation, how much are we paying? Are we paying Collier 28,000 or not?
That was
I just,
It's-
I can,
already approved prior with what we're paying them. to take care of the LSRP related items, the AOCs at DPW, the underground fuel tank at PD. Let me just give you a little background. The impetus of this was to identify a means and method to ensure that the architect and the LSRP have a clear line of delineation when it comes to environmental issues. Correct. So that's why we identified bringing the LSRP on as a professional, Colliers and professional for duration of the project. So there's something that comes up out of scope environmentally that was not identified would then be addressed in a separate proposal. We're not approving any additional funds now, nothing else.
Okay.
This is
I
just
didn't want to
saying,
know if this, because this should have been included in somebody's. cost estimate
it
somewhere.
was.
I think
It was previously back in, I forget what month it was, but yeah.
The 28.5 was the amount not to exceed, it was awarded on 4/17/23.
Yeah, that's the award, but what,
The set
that in Goldstein's estimate for environmental services and whatever else
is
is.
separate.
It wasn't in Eli's
Engineering.
cost estimate, but it was in our total budget, right, that we had, right, where we broke out both hard costs and soft costs. That's how we did the comparison to the 12 million cost of it. Yeah,
My
that's
last
a good question.
question is about it says here, leaf and brush program. Are we adopting a new policy procedure?
Yes.
Program, so. Your public comment on the procedure.
Yeah,
I don't know what it is.
I'm gonna dive into that more on that. I don't wanna
There
just,
will be comment on that.
I'll provide a good background of the last 10 months. Tonight.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bill. Anyone else in the public? Public comment on agenda items only? Allison, is anyone else on?
No, sir.
I just want to touch base on the sunrise to sunset component of what you both said there.
Yeah.
I mean, we talked a little bit about that. I think a set time was something, Chief, that you recommended.
Set time, I mean, for the most part, people are down there somewhere 9 o'clock, right, 8:30, 9 o'clock, but I like to find better. I don't think you really have any.
Right, but sunset is at 8:30, so your 9 o'clock, fine, half hour after sunset is fine, but they could be there at 9 o'clock tonight. And the sunset at 4:30,
So there's not, we just don't really need.
But down there now, they're pretty hard.
Yeah, it's really.
Yeah, but then again, the 50 sunset.
Bill,
Sunset is,
what I was gonna finish my comment on, is, to me, this is the starting point. If we feel as if this is too restrictive, or we feel it's not restrictive enough, I think we're gonna look at this in 6 months. It's more likely once the summer starts to see, you know, because that's when there'll be more action down there, to see what the impact is, positive or negative. And then at that point, if we need to pivot and change something, we'll pivot and change something.
Sure.
I mean, the one thing we talked about was 0-500, 200, you can make, which is 10 o'clock at night. Or 0-600, you know, whatever.
My initial reaction on the 0-500, 0-600 is I am trying to be respectful of the noise in that neighborhood, in the community. And if once again, if we're wrong, we'll be wrong and we'll own it and we'll pivot and we'll change it. I'm not saying that we can't expand those hours in the future, but I'm also not committing that we can't shrink those hours. I think we wanna see it in play. We had to start somewhere. I asked the governing body, I gotta be honest, there were 6 members of the governing body. I think I got 6 different answers as far as, so I tried to average it out the best I could from a place where everyone would be somewhat comfortable. And we realize that there'll be some people that are ecstatic and some people are disappointed, but we're gonna try and get to the right place.
Then the question is, going back to my point, I can go there at 6 in the morning if I don't have a fishing rod or credit.
Is that what you're gonna do? You're gonna invite me?
Yeah, I was looking at a fishing.
Maybe I'll join you.
But that's my point, is that you're making it restrictive to just one.
And if we see an issue with that, we will certainly pivot and make the necessary changes. But from my, I guess from my, maybe it's a perception, maybe it's wrong, but from my experience in being down there, I don't see people doing what you're saying they're doing.
I'll say this, I have.
I have a question about the,
Should we discuss this though during the intro to ordinance?
Oh,
'Cause we're on public
sure.
comment.
That's good, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
with no other public comments on agenda items only, I'm going to move along to approval of minutes, November 13th, 2023 executive session.
Motion.
Second,
Allison, might I please have a roll call?
Council members Cole,
Yes.
yeah,
Rivera,
Yes.
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 Thank you. Moving along, old business, resolution number 2023-282 and 283. Before we move into these, does anyone have any questions?
Just provide some background, Mayor.
Sure.
So are we gonna vote on these separately?
Yes, each one will be a separate vote. Yep.
So 2023-282, this is the award of the DPW renovation. All Building Corporation was the lowest responsible, there was 3.02 million. I misspoke before, I said 3.08. Again, around 1.5 million less than the cost estimate. And then the other one, as folks recall, we were looking to see if it made sense to tie the alternate, which was the Maple Avenue improvements. The Maple Avenue improvements included sidewalk, curbing, road. Going into it knowing that the GC that, or that all these GCs that would bid on it, aren't road contractors. So that's just the background there that I want to provide. I don't have any other questions.
Is there a recommendation related to that second one?
So
Because it's clear to me, obviously,
You want me to make the recommendation? I would recommend that we reject the
Mhm.
Maple Avenue alternate at this time.
in anticipation, putting it out to bid and getting a better price.
We'll, in the new year, we'll certainly look at all of our options and go from there.
I do.
Cost estimate
I
is
thought it was
250.
high,
cost estimate came in at 250.
and their bid came in at
457.
Okay,
So
okay.
I have a comment on both resolutions. The first one is on the first resolution. In a separate conversation I had with the borough attorney, Farris Enterprises bid was rejected for technical issues. I know Greg Cannon was gonna send them a letter. Should we include them in this list, even though they're rejected? That's on 282.
282.
You mean
They submitted a bid.
I understand, but you know, when we had the follow-up phone call, Greg Cannon was gonna send them a letter telling me their bid was rejected for technical reasons. And it makes no matter to me, I just didn't know, it makes them look like they're the second bidder, but in reality, the top three bidders are Hall, Fitzpatrick, and Crossan.
And you're awarding to Hall.
Understood. Barrows. I believe we should include them in the rejection.
The rejection, the award.
In the award, acknowledging that they were the lowest, we understand they had a failed defect, and that was the cause.
Okay. And then I have another comment on the rejection of the alternate bid. And the borough attorney and I spoke about this today, we both have great respect for each other. The resolution as written to me, sends a wrong message to the governing body and the public, in so much it appears as if we could have awarded the alternate bid to any of these bidders. And I just want to be very clear that the only bidder we can award the alternate bid to is Hall Construction, because they were the lowest base bid. The alternate goes to the base bid.
Yes.
I've honestly never seen a rejection of a alternate, it's just an award with the base, but I'm fine if we're rejecting it. But the other thing I want to point out is, in this, it actually says, it's been recommended all bids be rejected on the basis the bids exceeded the engineer's estimate for this work. And in reality, we have three bids, Farrows, West End, and Shorelands, that are below the engineer's estimate. And once again, Farrows has been disqualified. So I just think if you looked at this resolution in and of itself, it would appear as if, to someone that wasn't familiar, that we're rejecting all of these alternates. In reality, we're only rejecting one alternate, the one to Hall Construction.
For the record.
Attorney Civil, are you comfortable with it, how it's written?
I am at this time, yes.
Thank you, thank you. Any other comments or anything before I ask for a motion?
No,
Does anyone have a motion to approve 2023-282?
I'll make a motion to approve 2023-282.
Second,
Allison, may I please have a roll call?
Council members Cole,
Yes.
Bowie,
yes,
Patch,
yes,
Barbara,
Yes.
Net,
Yes.
Rodriguez.
yes,
Thank you. 2023-283, do I have a motion to accept or reject the alternate bid?
I'll make a motion to reject the alternate bid from Paul.
second,
Allison, may I please have a roll call?
Council members Cole,
Yes.
Bowie,
yes,
Patch,
yes,
Barbara,
Yes.
Net,
Yes,
Rodriguez.
yes,
but in reality, we're rejecting all of it, not just.
Understood.
Moving along, 2023 Leaf and Brush Program, Councilman LaBarbera.
Thanks, Mayor. And I'll give some background, just so we're all on the same page before I go into the update today. So the mayor established the Brush and Leaf Committee. We started meeting February. Yeah. And the ultimate goal of that was to come up with an action plan to improve our brush and leaf process, I'll call it. It focused on 3 different levers, focused on communication, focused on enforcement, and it focused on a schedule change. The communication consisted of a myriad of themes and mechanisms of way that we're going to communicate with the public, right? Getting those digital and physical touch points. Communication is going to be paramount with this, and that can mean 20,000 different things. It can mean sending out a mailer to everybody, and figuring out when that happens. It could be online sessions. It can be a myriad of different ideas. We're going to work very, very closely together on that. I'll let you go into communication more. Code enforcement, we spent a considerable amount of time on there. What the committee realized was that folks value their time more. And so, you know, a $250 fine is not as dissuasive, that's the right word, dissuasive, thank you, as having to go to a court appearance. The other key piece of this is the schedule. And what we landed at as a brush and leaf committee and then ultimately governing body, and then I'll go into the update, was we're gonna have a spring and fall cleanup where you can put your brush and leaf to the curb like you normally do now. That spring cleanup is April, the fall cleanup is October. So that means between May and September, we're moving to a can for brush. That can would be, if you opt into this, that can would be purchased by the homeowner. But we are increasing the pickup service to 2 times as opposed to once, right? So doubling the service in those months. After the fall cleanup in October takes place, we move into a rolling leaf pickup where you put your leaves to the curb as you do now. There should be no pumpkins and mumps, but you move that to the curb. And right now, everybody's leaves are picked up twice. It's being doubled as well, 4 times. Since our last governing body meeting, we have further refined the schedule. We have started drafting, Betty Ann has started drafting the calendar. And we've made headway on the ordinance components, which will be drafted and workshopped and introduced in the new year, just because we're out of time now. But that's okay, because we do have some time. We did spend time talking about the can, and I do want to ask this question and just get some feedback from the governing body. As far as color, we use this term green can to help metaphorically capture what we're trying to do here. In the research, though, of these cans, there's a balance that needs to be struck both with the durability, right? Because you're putting brush in the can, availability, and then as well as what I'll call versatility. The original can that we found in Evergreen came in 2 different models, right? A less durable model and a more durable model. At the last government meeting, we talked about wheels. So the more durable item comes in wheels, but it doesn't come in the Evergreen, only comes in gray. So the question is, and it's been very challenging looking at commercial distributors and Home Depots and Lowe's and Fairhaven Hardware to identify a durable green can. Because what I'm thinking is the last thing we want is to have a can that breaks frequently, right? It's got to withstand brush, it's got to withstand somebody picking it up and put it in, and then putting it down. We've talked about concerns around it not looking like everybody has their own can. So background, update, and where some updated guidance on the can needs to come in, because as we discussed, the one key item we have to be cognizant of is supply chain. Right, and we're gonna be having a partnership with Fairhaven Hardware. That doesn't mean you have to go to Fairhaven Hardware to buy it, but we will have a partnership with them. But if 500 cans are ordered, 1,000 cans are ordered, we want to give as much lead time as possible to get that in. We've talked about delivery, getting it to the homeowner, making it as least friction as possible, so. Looking at. Okay, cool. You asked the questions, I want to make sure that you had everything and you got up to speed.
I have a question, how close in color is the gray can to the one we already have?
I'm so glad you asked that. It just so happens that I come prepared with printouts. So the first two, that's the gray brute with handles. That's the same evergreen. So the one with wheels does not come in evergreen, and we asked the manufacturer. We did not ask the manufacturer if they would create a custom order for us. One, there's a price at that. Two, the sustainability of that. So I can go get a price, but I know that new molds and new colors and new tracks and a commercial line are fairly expensive. These are really reasonable, and then based on the discussions for the financial piece of Fairhaven Hardware, which I'm not going to go into here yet until everything's solidified, we should have better deals than Home Depot and Lowe's have. Probably not upwards of 20% cheaper.
Good.
I look at you,
Gray,
I think,
green,
Did you find out whether they could do a limited run custom mode?
I didn't. I sent them a note, but I haven't heard back from them. I can follow up with Rubbermaid. And we can do a price comparison. My recommendation, I don't think there's a right answer here. I don't think there's a right and wrong answer. I think we're gonna try this, and I think there'll be the improvements after next year.
Yeah.
But the evergreen makes it harder to have inconsistency, right? By having the evergreen brute, it avoids inconsistency more than the gray.
I agree. That's my concern is gray is so easily obtainable in so many different styles and manufacturers. And I also don't want our residents calling us petty when they get a summons because they're not using
Yeah,
the right can, even though they're both 32-gallon gray cans, and that's been my only concern with this entire program all along is that this can and getting it right. Maybe we could just take another look and see if there's another option, and I'll help with that.
I appreciate it. So we'll do two things. One, I want to have a meeting with communications to dive in and come up with a wholesome plan on December 18th, right? Or at least a draft. And then the second thing, Mayor, if you and I can circle up,
Yeah.
and then I'm sure you probably have more experience than I do in this, so we can see what it looks like. Is that cool?
Yeah, absolutely.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
so are we gonna? Well, on brush and leaf, I appreciate that we're gonna circle up and talk about communications, but I think we need to do that here for a minute, if we're still on brush and leaf. Where are we?
Well, we're not like in a, you want to talk about it now? I mean,
I
we can talk,
do.
we're gonna get right to communications in a second, but if you wanna touch on something, absolutely. That's
I do.
partially related.
I really think that the communication thing is, this program is, which, let me back up.
It's huge.
Fabulous program. This is a big improvement. We're gonna increase service without increasing costs. We're gonna reduce the amount of waste that's in the street and therefore in our gutters, stormwater drainage system and the river. It's all good. However, we really need to do the communication piece correctly. The enforcement alone isn't enough for this thing to have a successful launch. And even if we do the communications really well, it's still, we still might have flaws and issues with it. It's that complex, that the communications on this program. So I just want to dog your thought, which is, well, we've got a fabulous communications director who wears many, many, many hats. And we all know a little bit about what Betty Ann does. Kristen and I work closely with her. We know how good she is and what she does. I just need to dog ear for us, as the governing body, the very real possibility that we might need to either carve out some extra time for Betty Ann, which I don't, you know, Teresa would have to advise us if that is even possible, or to bring in some specialized support to work at Betty Ann's direction. This was touched on at the last outreach and communications meeting. But visual communications is a demanding craft. It's a specialized skill set, and she's great at it. This is a very discrete assignment. It has a start and end, and it's a critical program. So getting this communicated properly and in the window of time that we have available is the main thing I really want to stress here, in case we decide we need to put some money towards it. That's what I want.
With Betty Ann, and I believe I've copied personnel and perhaps communication chairs on this, who happen to be the same person. And I really feel very strongly that, provided Betty Ann does as previously discussed and requested, and she allocates 2 hours a day down here, away from the front window,
Yeah.
to work on nothing but communications, I don't think we have a problem.
Is
I
she
think-
getting that?
Well,
I feel
she-
very
She's
protective.
supposed to
of
be,
her
I know, she's supposed to be giving myself and the clerk a copy of that schedule that she works out with Christie. I have to look and see if I've gotten it for this week yet, but at the end of the day, I'm confident that if they agree with, let's just say it's 11 to 1, you know, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, because Christie doesn't work on Fridays, that would be 8 hours solidly dedicated to communication. I think should be fine. Betty Ann, you know, does a
She's
lot of things,
great.
but trying to do that while you're sitting at that window, answering the phone it's just too distracting. It can't be done. no matter
My
who you are.
point precisely, I know how you have to stop your thought process to engage with them. She's very, very, very good at that public engagement piece. I don't want to lose her in that, but for this particular
I have those
assignment,
emails, I'll share them with.
I don't need the emails. I really want to be clear about how important this is. Betty Ann is our gal, but she has a lot of demands on her time. So I think we need to decide at a certain point, not now, not tonight. I'm only raising this now so that we're all on the same page. And as you said, we'll get together and look at.
We'll come up.
But this
Yeah.
was discussed at our communications meeting.
Correct.
Yeah, and, yeah,
It doesn't take,
It's hard. It's really
it
hard.
doesn't
I-
take advantage of it, and it's encouraged, so she just has to say, girls.
Yeah.
It's not hard if you just set up a schedule and follow it, and I will make sure that's done.
And I'll talk offline too. I don't know if there's any opportunity to supplement what she does in the same way that we ask for volunteers from the community for all different types of
Understood.
committees and stuff. And I'm sure there'd be people in the community that would love to volunteer to help us with a special project like that. So,
That's a really
Yeah.
great idea.
Can I just say one thing?
yes, you can volunteer to help.
Well, I will definitely help. That's not a problem. But I'm gonna need a lot of information as a citizen, as a resident, because I'm still confused what goes in the can. I get confused between what's brush, what's allowed, what's not allowed, so that would have to be very clearly defined for me. And also the fact that we have an ordinance on the books that says you cannot see these cans from the street.
Yeah.
So residents that choose to participate in the program need to be aware that they're going to have to find a place to store this can.
My only other thought, and I discussed it briefly with Drew, and I didn't get a chance to talk to Andrew, maybe he did, was, you know, if we're really looking for a specific can, you know, I think we've run into some difficulty if we, from a proprietary standpoint, name the, you know, whether it's Rubbermaid or Buell or whoever makes it. I'm not so sure we're allowed to adopt an ordinance that said that, but I'll defer to the borough attorney if we're not paying for it.
You can't require them to purchase a specific company, it would have been in the ordinance.
But I could say it's like a 32 gallon
Yes.
evergreen
And look, there's a communication for the program, which is different than the ordinance. If the ordinance specifies a green can, but the program says, here's the can.
That's correct.
And we have a partnership with, and the easiest way to get it is by dialing XYZ. That's the program we're trying to communicate. So
can't make it my
it's
law.
I hear her exception though, we can't, if we can't make it law, then we can't guarantee
there'll be some,
consistency across the borough, and that's when you start seeing a mishmash of colors and purple, yeah.
But we can make it, just send it to me, color.
But how do we even know which can is being picked up for brush? If we don't have it, like, we know what can is picked up for recycling, we know what can is being picked up for trash. But if
Because our guys are picking it up.
Yeah, our guys are doing it.
I think
Based on the
we need to
date.
talk offline and
Yeah.
about that and just the can itself. That's-
Perfect, that
that's
was the goal of the workshop session, right, was to,
Perfect.
or.
We'll do some follow-up.
Okay, moving along, finance, Councilman Rodriguez, I know we have our meeting tomorrow, but do you
Yeah.
have anything?
No, nothing additional on that, but PD and should I move on to PD and fire?
Yeah, police, fire OEM, yes, sir.
Or, I won't steal any thunder from facilities other than say that it's really exciting to see the progress going on at the police department building site. I know there was a lot of work going on there today specifically. So I'll leave it at that. I'll turn that over a little later to Councilman LaBarbera. And then last week with fire, we met with the number of chiefs and discuss maintenance and capital items, timing on issues, including hose replacements that are out of compliance, tires that need to be changed. These are really large and expensive tires, engine maintenance, their boat slip, radios, a number of things. So we're coming together with a plan and a number of items that will live on beyond my time on the council, but we're laying the groundwork to make this all happen. So I'll turn to Councilman LaBarbera to add anything he wants to that.
No, spot on, and, you know, I appreciate Chris, because we spent an hour and a half in fire last week, and he came off Paris, and now he's sick, so maybe the fire chief's got him sick for this, but just kidding, that's not a knock on the fire chief. But no, I just appreciate it.
Yeah.
All right, we are now gonna move to personnel and parks and recreation. I could not be happier
Yes.
to be looking at Councilwoman Chris Tully. Let's get to a record.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Happy and grateful to be participating tonight. Thanks for looping me in, Allison. Just quickly on personnel, we still have a couple of openings on the DPW team, so we'll be looking to fill those as soon as possible. We are making some additional changes to library staffing, and we should have those updates by the next meeting on the 18th of December. We have a couple of additional staffing issues to discuss in executive session this evening, but that's really it for personnel for right now. Lots of exciting stuff going on in rec. We did not have a November meeting, but our next meeting will be taking place on Tuesday the 5th at 7:30. In terms of key dates, we have the holiday house decorating contest. All homes must be registered by December 8th, which is coming up. Flyer with all of that information went out today, and you can register and you can vote for that for the best house decorated for the holidays online as well. Santa in the Park and the holiday stroll will take place on Friday, December 8th, 5:30 to 7:30 at Memorial Park. Santa photos specifically will be taking place from 6 to 7:30 that night. Also very excited about the menorah lighting, which will be taking place on Sunday, December 10th at 4:30 in Memorial Park. Everyone's encouraged to join as well. And then we will be participating in the Santa calls again this year. I'm not going to go into too much detail for the little ears at home, but we're looking for volunteers to help with that initiative as well. So lots of good things coming down through rec.
Thank you, Councilwoman Hoey. Moving along, planning board, Councilwoman Cox.
Actually, nothing really has happened since our last planning board meeting. Our next meeting is December 12th. The agenda has yet to be determined, and That's all I have for you.
Did you do the extension for subdivision? That was at the 15th, right?
The Hendrickson.
For Hendrickson,
Yeah,
it was good.
yeah, that was passed. Yeah, the extension,
Hold on.
I think it's 60 days. It's 60
Yes.
days.
Good.
60-day extension, yeah.
Thank you. Moving along, engineering DPW, borough facilities, zoning board of adjustment.
Thanks,
Councilman
Mayor.
Marlboro.
Zoning board adjustment, no updates since the last meeting, last governing body meeting, next zoning board meeting is 07 December. Switching over to borough facilities, I'm stoked for tonight, with the DPW resolution. We'll look to award the fuel tanks on the 18th December. The other piece here is we're finalizing the auction dates. We approved that at the last governing body meeting. We're sliding slightly to the right, doesn't impact time or schedule. And the other piece is we're still running the ground. We talked about the license plate reader to add that on to the security camera. I'm still running around details, price, cost, so I'm hoping to come with an update at the 18 December meeting. On PD and Community Center, has anybody driven by it today? So it's like the community center is almost down completely. The asbestos abatement went great. Got our report back on that, obviously, before they did the demo, Mr. Mayor. Betty Ann did a great job in communication. They're moving towards the slab pouring. I want to come back to something because we talked about that week, right? Remember, we had a special meeting to approve a week earlier. I mean, we are up just against the weather. And the bid spec doesn't call out to adding antifreeze into the concrete. One is costly and two, the architect doesn't recommend it. So like that 1 week is helping us. What else? Once the community center's down, which is by tomorrow, then they'll start working on the foundation for the community center. Temporary bathrooms are gone. Our appropriation was supposed to go to the House floor, but then got pulled. Not ours specifically, the group that it's in, hoping to get an update soon on that. The LSRP, we hit the resolution tonight on that. And we walked through with the Historic Commission, Lisa and Pat Drummond. We went through it, looking at all the different items that we want to make sure are saved. The one item, I would say probably of critical significance is the original window from the school. So that is it exactly, yeah.
The fan looking?
Yeah.
That is a nice one.
Yeah, so we're in discussion to find a pro bono means to have that professionally removed before the building's demolished. We need to figure out where it makes sense to go. But it's one of the oldest pieces in the entire building, so.
We got those lanterns out front.
But those are going in the garage.
Yeah.
We're saving them and we replicated them.
I don't think the same ones are.
No, but-
No.
Right.
Those two that are currently in there will go in the police garage. We're gonna save them in the police garage. And then there's 2 replicas going on the outside of the
Right.
building.
Sweet.
Okay.
So that covers that. Engineering DPW. There's an entire vehicle maintenance overhaul happening, right? As everybody recalls, our vehicle maintenance point of contact left. So that's underway. It's a huge effort. McCarter Pond work is ongoing. We're 7 days into 10 days. Some discussion of what the remaining work will look like as far as area to cover. They removed, I think they have 9 dumpsters removed of materials. So there were 6 removed, 2 are on site, and there's a bunch left to it. So we needed the 6 plus the 2 plus the 1, I get 9. But they also edged around the entire, not the entire, part of the periphery, got rid of all of, I forget the material. I call them punks because you can light them on fire. And they get rid of the mosquitoes.
Citronella.
No, somebody help me. Cattails, thank you. You can actually dry them out and then they actually repel
Would they
mosquitoes.
remove the cattails?
The northern section, not over by Leavenworth.
Not by button, yeah.
And what was the reason for that?
Because we don't want mosquitoes.
They're
on
considered
buttons.
invasive species to the pond and not, and they would move just as any other vegetation.
Might want to consider a helpful list of non-invasives, to help stabilize the banks. Something for probably committee level.
So, yeah, and our next meeting's 7 December. Hanson Cooney, we're starting discussion when we can pave, trees not coming down, just want to say it again. Went over there the other day, looks good. Get going on the Fairhaven Road project. figuring the street lighting go out to bid. And then, waiting to get confirmation of the micro projects to move to the next phase, right? The trees were done with the exception of 2. So we can get forward on the prioritized list. So that's everything from me, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilman. Borough Communication, Community Outreach, Councilman Cole.
Thank you, Mayor. Outreach and Communications continues to support and facilitate the Brush and Leaf Communication Program. We're really building a bicycle while we're riding it a little bit, but we do hope to be able to have something. I'd like to bring it here to this body, sort of test the work product, get some feedback at the next meeting. We're also spending a little bit of time on internal communications, and Betty is doing a phenomenal job keeping ahead of ongoing construction. And she's working closely with Chief. Chief sends great updates. She gets them out right away. Teresa's doing a really great job of keeping all of that sort of type of construction communication going. So just compliment. I think we all knew some months ago that we would be in a really big wave of work that was all happening simultaneously, which is going to put an extra special burden on Betty Ann, but it's fluid, it's happening, and I just want to acknowledge her. The Environmental Commission is working on their annual report. Next environmental roundtable will be in January, and they're currently collecting input from really anyone, but particularly committees, boards, and commissions for what they anticipate would be an update to the ERI, the Environmental Resource Inventory, which is a catalog of data points having to do with our natural resources storage. We're going to be receiving the grant from the Shade Tree Commission has been really spearheading, and I just want to acknowledge their leadership and foresight. They've been really tracking that grant for a while, and obviously that's the work of this body to get that grant application out, and now it's in. So I just wanted to acknowledge the Shade Tree Commission. The grants committee has to report that we did not receive the transportation planning grant for the guided walking tour, unfortunately. We also did not receive a formal application or an invitation to submit a formal application to NOAA. Also, unfortunately, this is what happens sometimes in the grant process, but we will stay on it. We're hoping to submit to the governing body a summary of Vermont County's 2024 open space grant, which would maybe include a planning grant for open space planning, as well as inclusive playgrounds. The business district would like to welcome Adrian on new business at 813 River Road, Mod 39. It's a women's apparel shop. She's done pop-ups around here. Very, very, very well received, and her doors are now open. She's the neighbor of Green Lines underneath Clementine's. Kristen already touched on the holiday stroll. That's a partnership between the Business Association and rec, and everyone should come out and check it out. The business put out sort of a lovely offering to amplify the evening, and the kids love it. It's a wonderful family evening. And you'll see in River Road Books, a small plug, the Historic Association had printed note cards if you're looking for that perfect little stocking stuffer, note cards featuring Bicentennial Hall. As a lovely gift idea, proceeds will help to support the Historic Association and preservation of Bicentennial Hall.
Great, thank you, Councilman Cole. Moving along, introduction ordinance 2023-19, fishing and crabbing regulations. Before this, from motions, anyone want to discuss?
I did. I have a question, and I think it's for our attorney. So when I read, and let me back up and say, I know we have issues down there we definitely need to address. And I can appreciate the current urgency around it. We want to be ready for the next spring and summer, and in anticipation of the council's will to acquire 21 Fairhaven Road. I'm in this pickle. It's a little bit of a dilemma, and I'm wondering where our regulatory authority ends, because I feel like this is, well, where it begins and ends perhaps is a better way to ask, because I see us trying to regulate certain things that are specific to certain recreational uses, the crabbing and fishing, or the people who are crabbing and fishing. Can't smoke, can't bring a chair, can't light a flame. I mean, they're all reasonable things that perhaps we don't want people to do, but I guess if crabbing and fishing is regulated by another body, what, how, I'm wondering if we're stumbling into a potential lawsuit. I'll just put it right up.
I don't believe so. We've been going over reiterations of this ordinance for probably a few months now, and we've discussed it. We've removed anything regarding permits or licensing from that, as that is a regulatory function of the state. So at this point, I believe that it's an enforceable ordinance, and I don't believe it would be able to be, I mean, listen, anyone can sue.
Well, I don't want us in a lawsuit over
I understand,
coolers
but
and
anything-
smoking,
Right.
right? We can prohibit smoking on public land. We can, should, and do. Prohibit smoking and alcohol and open flames on public land. I mean, 3 of the 5 things here are already prohibited on public land. Coolers, not so much, but neither are lawn chairs prohibited in other public lands. But if we don't want coolers on the dock, then that should probably apply to everybody, not just, listen, I'm not a lawyer, but I do see where we're kind of stretching a little bit here.
Well, this is gonna be, you know, the cooler is not just for people that are fishermen or crabbers, like crabbers. I believe
Maybe I
that
read it
it's not, you know, specific to a specific type of person. I believe it's general, and it serves the government's purpose here to regulate what goes on in the dock, to make sure that it's not a nuisance to the public, and it's not a nuisance to the neighbors. And it all relates to certain, I guess, goals of the ordinance. I don't see anything where it would be, you know, prohibitive of a certain type of person. I guess.
Well,
if you're-
while crabbing or fishing, no coolers or ice boxes larger than 10 quarts. And I'm not trying to pick on this. I want to take the steps that we need to take to protect the quality of life of that neighborhood.
Absolutely.
On balance, maintain access to the public. Now, to me, the public is a much smaller idea. However, because it's Green Acres property, we have an obligation to provide public access to a much larger. I'm wondering where. Look, it says right here, did you prepare this one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Can I ask a question? You know, upon reading this, latest iteration of the fishing and crabbing ordinance, if you look at chapter, I think it's chapter 9, sections 6.2 through 6.6, they all say wild crabbing or fishing.
Yeah.
Yet it is my understanding that all of these activities are pretty much prohibited anyway. Open flame, mattresses, pitching a tent.
I think that the
Consuming products, smoking, I think that's prohibited in the parks.
That this is a new section within the Parks and Recreation of chapter specifically talking about fishing and crabbing.
Okay.
So it's not.
If there's a specific issue, I would definitely like to address it.
Well, I didn't know if you could just take out wild crabbing or fishing.
Yeah,
But
I think that's the part that
The
makes.
the
me
one,
very
well,
proud of
the one,
policy.
the 1964, wouldn't work for, lawn chairs.
Right.
You know, the idea there is people shouldn't be bringing their lawn chairs on the dock. You know, scraping up our dock, there's plenty of seating there, there's no reason for additional chairs to be there.
Well, I think that's Betsy's point, then why are we just saying?
No, because what I'm saying is it says in all the parks, so you're gonna tell someone they can't put their lawn chair to watch a soccer game.
We'll say at the
Right.
dock then.
right, is it possible to have a separate thing for the dog?
You're asking the wrong person, that's.
This, I mean,
No, like a
I don't know
separate,
what else you,
a separate ordinance for the dog, because for example, like, open flames, you never wanna have that, period. Doesn't
Mhm.
matter if it's doing crabbing and fishing hours, like at night, never. I think somewhere here we said no mattresses, ever.
Mhm.
Some of these behaviors, right? But that's it's an issue
I mean,
with the dog.
I think that's
So
what it says while crabbing or fishing, because we're talking about waterfront property.
So what if
That's
the
what-
person, sorry, I kind of had a similar reaction. What if the person is crabbing and fishing and then by the time that it's 9 PM, they decided to put away the crabbing and fishing stuff and put their mattress out and go look at the stars at the dock? Then what? I mean, that's part of my, I think this is kind of a good starting point and maybe we should go ahead with it. But I kind of feel like we should have a different iteration of this by next year and come up with something.
There could absolutely be another ordinance that you draft regarding, a specific location. Anything with regards to access to water. I mean, there's, how many different access points do we have that are public?
A lot.
A bunch,
McCarter.
right? So there's
Yeah.
there's other ordinances, but this is addressing an issue that I believe that the mayor and council felt that there was. It was a specific, issue that we were trying to address here, and that was the crabbing or fishing at all times of the day or night.
And that's the balance. I'm just mentioning, you just had a resident that said we're being too restrictive. I'm just mentioning that the things you're saying is being more restrictive. You're opening it up to ban it everywhere in every
Well, it's not
situation.
nice. You should never have an open flame. It should
Yeah.
not be cooking with cooking stoves like I've seen on the dock ever. That should be like a 24 hours prohibition. The same thing with the mattresses.
And we-
Should never have a mattress.
And we can
there.
certainly create an ordinance to address, other,
I also want to take a step back real quick, right? Everything included in here is based on the feedback that one, we gave, and two, came out of the direct conversations of the residents over there.
Mhm.
So the initial language of this was far less, right, inclusive, and then after we had the original meeting, I don't know if it was that October, and they started providing all the anecdotes, of just how many mattresses are down there, the anecdotes of the open flames, the anecdotes of that, so this document was directly, I'm gonna say influenced from the residents who live in that area. And then we even had the conversation 2 meetings ago on making only the dock, and then this governing body decided, just to kind of go back in time a little bit, to make it more open than just the dock, but treat it to crabbing and fishing. Right, it's one thing to talk location specific versus activity specific. This seeks to focus on the activity that has been collectively assessed to cause the greatest amount of friction points at the dock.
So and I fully track you all the way. I just think that there's a difference between getting public input and what we're legally allowed to regulate. I have a concern that we are regulating very specific behaviors associated with a very specific recreational use. That I'm not sure we have the legal authority to regulate.
He's saying you do though,
I know, but how are you,
like,
don't-
what's the guidance?
You can't play on the tennis courts after 7 PM. I mean, you're telling the tennis players they can't play there. It's a very specific use that you're regulating.
I mean, we have to look at
Well,
also.
we don't say to them, and by the way, don't bring your backpack, and.
Because it's not an issue, it's not creating an issue, it would be like telling someone on a baseball field, like, don't swing. We make a rule just for baseball fields, don't swing your bat in the on-deck circle, because you might hit someone in their head. And we don't make a rule for the whole town, like, don't do that on Buttonwood Drive, because it's not really an issue on Buttonwood Drive, it's an issue in the on-deck circle. So right now, we have an issue with crabbing and fishing that's creating a nuisance for our community, and we're addressing that nuisance. I agree with Lena, and I agree with you. I don't have a problem expanding this. I think we have to find the right balance, but we also have to start somewhere. We think that we're gonna have the perfect ordinance on day one, I think is not really a reasonable idea. We are going into the shallow end here. And I don't think we should jump into the deep end. I think we should start and see how the reaction is. And if we have all of a sudden have a bunch of people with giant coolers on the dock that aren't crabbing and fishing, we can adjust to that. It's just not an issue right now.
I have a question. In chapter 9, Parks and Recreational Areas, are there other sections that address alcohol beverages or
Yeah,
smoking
yeah.
or open flames?
I don't know about the open flame, but there's definitely with regards to alcohol.
And smokiness.
Yeah,
Put it in that order.
Well, smoking, yes,
And
absolutely.
smoke,
And
I
then-
mean,
9-1.22.
right, so. I just want to make sure that we're not being exclusionary and that we are including other areas, other park areas are subject to the same regulations.
But we're not saying, we're only saying if you're going fishing or crabbing, you have to limit to X, Y, and Z. We're not saying you can't come here to fish or crab. There's other regulations. And of the 6 different items, hours is not a question, right? We can set that.
Hours.
Alcoholic beverages, obviously, that's contained within our entire municipal code.
Right.
Open flames. It protects it's a concern, obviously. And smoking prohibited. So, I mean, basically what. I'm just assuming we're questioning the tents, lawn chairs, and mattresses prohibited. And the use of coolers. They're not saying you can't use the coolers, they're just saying you have to limit the size of the coolers. As far as enforcement, I don't know how the chief and his officers are going to enforce and start measuring coolers. But at the same time, you're not excluding a person, you might be excluding a size of a product. But these are not protected classes, these are people that can, argue that we're discriminatory in any way.
Well, that goes to the heart of my question, and that you've said it better than I did. They're not, is crabbing and fishing protected?
No. As a crib. You're allowed, we're not saying you can't crab or fish.
On public,
We're not saying that they can't do that. These are all ancillary or, accessory uses. Having a mattress on a dock, I mean. I
it's
believe it would
insane,
be,
you don't want mattresses, so I'm not,
Right.
I don't argue with that, I'm
I mean, the only thing that we might say is, the size of a cooler, but I don't see any way that the borough would be liable for a lawsuit based on the size of a cooler.
I don't know either. This is why I'm trying to really understand it and make sure we're not. And I don't know how you know for sure that it's not, that there's not some interest group out there that's gonna say, hey, I'm allowed by law to come down here and crab and fish. on
You
my
absolutely
acres of land. And by the way, I'm a smoker. And I brought my lunch because I'm gonna be here for 4 hours.
But we're not saying that you can't, we're not saying
Okay.
that you can't come down to our, access points to crab or fish. We're just saying. You can't bring, your Sealy
chair.
Posturepedic mattress and put it on the dock and sleep there, which I've witnessed for, myself. You can't bring tents. These are all things of concern to the borough and.
Me too.
The use of coolers, it might be the only one, but I don't know any organization that is gonna come down here and say. I cannot believe you would not let us use a 15-quart cooler or however they may.
Yeah.
And I'm hopeful, I don't know if 10 quarts, maybe that's the wrong size, again, I think it's a starting point. I thought looking at it, it was the correct size to bring a lunch. And bring your bait, your chicken, or whatever it might be. If not, I'm hopeful that they're gonna make use of our unbelievable businesses in the borough of Fairhaven. You want some lunch, you got Lupo down the street, yeah, so, you got Jack's Goal Line Stand, you got Tavolo across the street. You got Over Easy Kitchen, these are all plugs for Fairhaven businesses. Make use of. whatever town
And it
has.
says per person, so you can have
Per
a
person,
dad and a
yeah.
son, so the dad has the bait cooler and the son has the lunch.
If-
It's not saying per family.
So we'll test it and see what happens.
Yes, I think it's a good starting point. I mean, like I said, I would like to see the mattress. Not there for 24 hours a day,
Yeah,
just to make sure.
Right?
But I think it's a good way to start.
Just ask everybody by Andrew without, because we were competing on some DEP regulations, such as permitting and things like that.
So permitting licensing issues,
And
and that's really where the DEP gets, because then you're excluding someone. That doesn't have either the capability or the ability to register for a permit or
which
apply for a
makes
license.
sense, and I.
We're not saying that, we're
That's
saying, hey, come enjoy our dock. However,
We have some rules.
yeah, no open flames, obviously a concern to the borough. So
Do we have to get any kind of Do we have to run this past anybody at this meeting? Okay. Can I ask the chief a couple of questions?
Sure.
So you've obviously, this has been shared with you, you have a
Yeah.
sense of, and you understand what we're trying to achieve.
Absolutely. You know,
Up till now, I mean, some of these things are not new, right? To most of us who live in Ferry, even more aware. Especially after COVID, it kind of became aware of some of the stuff that was going on down there. What has it been like for the forest? What happens now? They feel like they can't do anything?
well, you gotta have, like I said, if you wanna use a dock and fish, you have to have some kind of rules. Right now, you know, nobody really knows what the rules are. Are the rules or not? There's nothing posted. So once we get this ordinance, and we'll figure out how we're gonna post it, so it's obvious, so if you go down there, and somebody violating it, say, here's a sign. That doesn't mean that everybody's going to summons, that doesn't mean that we're not gonna be reasonable. Like you said, how big is a cooler, 10-quart cooler, we're not gonna measure it, but you know what a 10-quart cooler should be,
Sure.
right? It's not this big two-handed cooler, so, I think it's all like reasonable, right, what's reasonable? And you need to post it, you have to have some kind of rules, because if you don't have a rule, there's nothing to back it up.
Let me ask you a quick question, scenario. Over the summer, if you went down and you saw a couple of kids in makeshift, I don't know, I didn't see any mattress, whatever it is, a sleep situation or a playpen. And a little stove going and, a lawn chair, yeah, open air. Yeah, al fresco dining, what, now? What would one of your officers do?
You talk about after the ordinance or
No, before.
before the ordinance? Well, if it was unsafe, let's say they were playing, I would assume they would tell them, hey, put the flame on or something. But other than that, maybe have them move along if they're just kind of hanging out there and not in the way or something, you know, that everybody has to share the dock, but I don't know if really much you would do with it.
And what if they had a bottle of wine?
Well, the Apple's don't allow any
Right,
public, so yeah,
right.
yeah.
So has that been happening?
Well, there's, you know, I don't know exactly what happened, but there's been some issues down there with the people that are fishing, grabbing, right? I mean, I would say 99% of the other time it's not, we have issues with the, high school kids, get addressed, you know, they go down there at the thing.
Yeah.
That's more of a noisy thing, but you know, with the fishing crowd, there's a mess, people are staying there way past the hours, cause problem, we're getting noise complaints after we're trying to address, but we have to have someone to back it.
Okay, so you have not, you don't feel you've had what you need in order to address it?
Right, if you don't have anything to back it, it's very tough. You can always ask anybody to, you know, move along or something, but at the end of the day, if you don't have any ordinance or a rule to back it, there's not much you can do. So like you're talking about lawsuits, you're actually better off having a ordinance or something to back it, where if you don't have anything to back, so you tell them to move along, like the person that was laying on the mattress, there's no real rule. Like, I think that, if I remember correctly, I think they were saying, okay, no problem, attack them a lot, I don't think it was a problem, but at the same time, as they said, no, I'm not leaving, what's the next step?
Right,
So having a rule or ordinance actually, you know, the opposite can actually help you, because then if you end up having to go a thing that turns into an arrest and everything, you have something to back it. Where right now, if that person said, no, I'm not moving, I don't know, what do you do when they don't, right? There's nothing to back it. So that's why you have to have something in there. So I think it's actually without it, and we get a call, go have them move along, which we have those calls, and luckily they did, because they didn't, and then you ended up telling them who they really arrest them or something, give them something, you have nothing to back it at the end of the day, so. I would say it's almost the opposite, if you have ordinance that the attorney reviewed and said it's legal and you can do it, then I think it's better to have something than, you know, in there.
thank you.
So, like I said, 99% of the time, it's, you know, it has to do with that certain time of year, crabbing and fishing is really what the issues are there, you know, the other.
Mhm.
You know,
One last
9 months,
question.
there's really not.
What would you want to see posted on the sign?
Well, I think we have to, you know, kind of, take that down when we can, but the ordinance, or whatever it is, no, you know, the hours, no overplay, no matter, basically what the ordinance has got to just make it obviously a lot.
There are little signs with no mattresses.
Whatever.
No,
yeah,
no
sleeping
lawn
apparatus,
chairs.
Whatever it
no-
might be called, yeah. Yeah, no pass, whatever. Yeah, right now, we kind of, like I said, there's really nothing posted. We have to start posting some signs.
We do,
that's
you're right,
obvious.
yeah.
It's hard to go tell somebody something that is not posted.
Well, especially since we know there's certain things already prohibited, we should
Yeah,
have signs.
And they have a sign and say, you know, per ordinance, whatever the ordinance number is, you know, you see it all over, you know. And again, it's be reasonable, right? Everybody's gonna be treated the same, doesn't matter if you're resident or not, but that doesn't mean you can't be reasonable either.
Right. Right.
Nobody's looking to go down there if it's quiet and they're not with any issues, but when you have an issue, you have something back it, and we don't right now, it's kind of like up in there, so that's why I would almost the opposite, without it, you're probably more open for liability than with it. Because right now,
Well, unless there's some, unless we're overstepping, and I rely on the guidance of our attorney. The last question, thank you very much, Chief. The last question has to do with the one specific section, that deals with special events and weddings. Concerts, weddings we refer to, but I think we have to leave it a little open to other events.
This is including but not limited to.
I
Right.
suggested we just leave it open to as posted by the borough. We don't generally approve of weddings or give them the doc individually. But it's usually, like, you know, when we have concerts or other things going on down there, then if we post a sign that says dock closed due to special events, we're good to go.
And is that, can we do that? Eliminate access for crabbing and fishing, which is a permitted recreational use allowed on 3 acres. I'm just. putting that
I'm
out
gonna
there.
defer to Andrew, but I think it's fair to say that while we have 100 people on a dock for a concert, it doesn't take, you know, too much to stretch the fact that we can close the balance of the dock to other activities
Yeah.
than viewing the concert.
It's the same, you know, same effort when we go to close Fairhaven Fields and there's certain areas that you can't access. Where you take out, you know, there's a permit that's taken out and, you know, we close part of Fairhaven Fields for Fairhaven Day. It's the same thing, you're limiting someone's access to use, because you need a ticket to enter the
Yeah.
facility. To enter the fields.
Well,
We don't have that many special events there, but it is very difficult when we do, when people are trying to come and go with that
their
type of
fishing
equipment.
stuff.
It's, I would say there's almost an amount of danger to it. You know, you got people sitting up at that dock and trying to find coolers and nets and this and that.
Yeah,
It's, you know, it's only probably an hour and a half, 2 hour time frame, but during that time frame, we should be able to close it.
Yeah, that sounds complicated.
it does sound reasonable. I'm concerned that this is a protected group, and I don't want to use the wrong phrase, but with the permitting at the DEP, does it protect our right to access in some way? Which is, you know, I've asked my question in several ways and you've answered it. Thank you very much.
Anything else on before I ask for a motion, I have a motion to approve.
Motion.
Second,
Allison, may I please have a roll call?
Councilmember Paul. Abstain.
Ollie,
Yeah,
yes.
Rivera,
Yes.
Neff,
Yes.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Thank you. Moving along, consent agenda, resolutions 2023-279 through 290. Before I ask for a motion, does anyone want anything separated?
No, on my end, just two things to point out, 287, that's the resolution we talked about before with the LSRP. Right, specific to the 3 facilities, and then just calling
That's
it,
the amended version on the dais.
yep,
You have a copy of it.
and then just calling out 279, the police vehicle, which had a 12-month lead time. And that's all I wanted to highlight, Mayor, thanks.
Does anyone have any comments?
I just want to point out that there was a revised certification of funds in the police vehicle, signed by Colleen Lapp. The total amount was 54,456.72, which is 3 one-year payments of 18,152.24.
One question that had to do with, resolution 223. 288 budget transfers, 2023 budget transfers. Was the finance committee involved in that? Okay.
Yeah.
That's it, Mayor.
I only have one comment on the vouchers, and I'm gonna, you know, I was not here, for the executive session last meeting. Excuse me. I just want to be clear that the 485.19 that's on, the agenda tonight on the vouchers for Serenia and Edwards and Nolan, is really, for the review of, everything that leads up to the memo that you reviewed in executive session, that we're paying a pro rata share of that. I didn't discuss it with Michael Edwards ahead of time. I have had prior.
It's on the
discussion-
ballot.
Yes, I have had prior discussions with, you know, some professionals that, I'd be inclined to want to see a proposal of this before we actually, pay the invoice. But you know, I'll leave that to the governing body. If you look at the backup for that professional services, it starts on 10/2/23. Finalize letter to client to secure authorization from consortium to expend consortium funds related to round 4. And every charge from there through, let's see, through 10/20 is all related to that same memo and anything that Mike Edwards did leading up to issuing that memo.
Teresa, that's a great call out. Thank you for.
And I mean, and like I said, I, you know,
What are the dates again?
the dates on the invoice that came from Mike Edwards' office start on, sorry, Josh, I closed it up again. The work starts on 10/2/23, and it goes through 10/20/23. And my initial inclination was to ask you to, you know, hold it for the bill list and give me a chance to speak to Mike Edwards, but once again, I wasn't at executive session at the last meeting when we discussed that memo, so I didn't want to take that upon myself without just pointing it out to you and letting you make your decision on that.
Well,
What are you recommending?
You can approve it as submitted in the amount of $485.19 for the work that I just described, or you can hold it and ask me to discuss it with Mike Edwards and, you know, get a further explanation of, you know, the scope of work and the borough's pro rata share that went, I'm assuming, to all of their clients.
well, I don't recall us making a decision and nor authorizing any work. So I would recommend, thank you, Teresa, for putting this out.
I don't recall her bringing something like this up, which gives me a little pause in approving that specific bill. Can we approve the rest of the vouchers with the exception of that?
Yes, you can, and I'll just do a real quick new total, dropping out that amount.
With the understanding that we're
It may be
even,
back on in a future agenda. I'll get an explanation from, you know, Mike Edwards, share it with the governing body, and then you can make your own determination.
can we have either if it's not on the voucher list at the next meeting, can we have an update? If it's
Yes,
not?
sir. I anticipate it will be. I don't anticipate that my exchange with Mike Edwards will be very, it will take a long time. All right.
So we're talking 2023 dash, does anyone else have anything else? We'll consider. We're talking 2023-279 through 2023-290 with the exception of the bills that we just discussed there. The bill that we
Do you have a purchase order for that? Just
Yeah, the PO amount is 23,00611. And I'm gonna give you the, I'm gonna take the 4104,518.58, which is on the total for the bills list. And I'm gonna subtract the Serenian bill in the amount of $45.19.
So he had let me just repeat it back in layman's terms. He had a PO initially cut. He used part of that PO to address.
He didn't have a separate PO cut for this meeting. Usually when I ask for their input on, you know, a professional service, I will either, if it's routine, I'll just pay it off of, you know, their open PO, or if it's something specialized like this, I'll at least look for an explanation and explain it to, at the very least, the finance committee before I get the okay.
Are we concerned at all? And I don't know if we should talk about that. I don't want to say my comment.
I don't think there's any harm in holding it. You know, Mike's a reasonable guy, and I think if we,
We're gonna have an update.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm fine with that.
and somebody can double check me, but I have the 4104,518.58 minus 485.19 for a new total of 4,104,033.39 for the vouchers.
All right.
Do I have a motion to approve as discussed?
Motion.
Second,
Allison, may I please have a roll call?
Councilmember Paul,
Yes.
Howie,
Yes,
Fox,
yes.
Rivera,
Yes.
Neff, Rodriguez.
Yes,
Thank you. Department reports, anything on that? Do I have a motion to accept the report as submitted?
Motion to accept with a thank you.
Thank you. I mean, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, Next up, go to the borough. Please stand and identify yourself by clearly stating your name and address for the record.
I have a couple of questions. I mean, make a comment. Paving Fields National, Paving Net last week. There were a couple of questions that came up. One, Teresa, we wanted to confirm whether curbs would be placed, when we do the paving road construction. When we get to the fields and by the cherry trees, where the curb will be placed there. And
I
that's
believe,
part of the design.
based on borough engineers' prior discussions on that matter, the answer is yes.
Okay, that's what I
And
thought.
ultimately, those plans will be approved by the governing body before they go out to bid, and I'm sure they'll be discussed with input from the public and the appropriate committees before we go
It's
out to
not,
bid.
So I just wanted to mention that that's something that, maybe it's a good idea to communicate to the Pavement Fields National Committee when we do get to that point. I think they do have some concerns about, making sure that curbs are placed to reduce, runoff there. And if that's really what we want to do, just make sure that we coordinate that when we get to that point.
And we will. We will. It's something,
That
Talk to them
makes
about that.
sense.
yeah, there's multiple stakeholders.
There was also talk about putting a possible crosswalk in there, so it has come up before, I'm sure, it will be addressed.
I think it would be good to have them involved on that process,
Check that.
just because they really take care of, help us take care of those trees. The second one is there's a couple openings. I was just wondering whether maybe we could advertise it. It seemed like the committee did not have any particular names in mind as people who might want to be.
We did.
Joining.
Went out last week on multiple,
Want to make sure.
yep, it's already gone out, I'm already,
For volunteers.
I'm deep in the process already of appointments. And
Good
if
job.
I do fall short, I'll certainly reach out and look for more. Yep.
And the only last point is, they have repeatedly asked for 2 hours per month of, borrow time, so that somebody can sit down and address some of their questions. I think that would be a good idea, because there are things they wanna do, for example, like if they wanna put in an order for a certain job at the DPW. I know there's some paperwork they need to fill out, which is a little bit of a different process than they've done before. And I think they still don't fully understand how to get the process going so that they can make the request to have DPW help them with some things, some projects. And make sure that that's well coordinated. If they could call someone for 20-30 minutes per week, or even if it was every other week. I think that would be a helpful thing, if they could be assigned someone like Betty Ann or whoever that might be. That they can call and be the person that can help them answer some of their questions. I think that would help them better plan with the borough and with the PW, the projects they try to work on. So I think that's something that's come up several times, but I just wanted to mention that again.
What they're looking for is akin to what we give the different commissions and some sort of secretary help. I will tell you that myself, my QPA, the clerk's office, my liaison to engineering and public works, we're fully accessible to them and answer any and all questions that they have and I'll even say the last time they had to do an input form, who did it for them. When they're doing their volunteers day, we put it out for communications, we explain to them that, they have to use the volunteer waiver form, like, if I get an email from Carolyn Ferguson, if it takes me more than 12 hours to respond, I would be shocked.
Right.
And I have countless ones, and depending on who the appropriate person is, I would copy them. If I'm not sure of an answer, I'll get it from the CFO or from the QPA or whoever needs to get it from.
Yeah, it might be, one thing that might be helpful would just to maybe assign someone who they can call. I don't know, every week for a certain amount of time, if there are any questions, if there are none, they don't have to.
Well, they can certainly say you've assigned me to it, because if I take, for argument's sake, and I'm not gonna name an employee, but I take an employee and they don't know the answer to that question, they're not gonna be able to answer the question regardless. So, if they use me as their point person, I will immediately get in touch with whoever the appropriate person, whether it's communications or the clerk or the CFO or the QPA, and we'll get them an answer like that.
Okay.
We understand the request. It's noted, and as we discuss in finance, the budget and, just coverage all over, we'll definitely consider. Thank you. Go to the borough. Anyone in the public will go to the borough. Yes, sir. Mr. Fletcher.
Neil Butcher, 60 Baton Road. I just want to make a few comments about the recent Fairhaven Council election, which was only about 3 weeks ago, although it seems like a lifetime ago. At least I'm sure to Brian, to lifetime myself. Just want to say a couple of words. First, it was an absolutely amazing experience for me to run for council. And I felt totally connected to Fairhaven before I ran, and now I'm even closer to that. More importantly, I want to congratulate Brian and Michael on getting elected to be on the council. I know that you guys are incredible assets to the borough, and thank you to Chris on video and to Leilani for your years of dedication and support to the borough. Just amazing opportunity. I know all of you have done this. Walking the streets of Fairhaven is an absolutely amazing experience, and meeting our neighbors and exploring our neighborhoods. And I just wanted to express my thankfulness to the community, and I look forward to opportunities to continue to help support the borough. So thank you.
Yeah, that was a class act. I'm also slightly upset because I was closing my meeting, as I just showed Betsy, with first congratulating Michael DiMichele and Brian Olson. Congratulations. And also a huge thank you. Neil Bletcher, Melissa Lowry. I don't think, until you've been in the shoes, I don't think people realize how much hard work goes into this and the commitment that is made in order to put yourself out there to volunteer for the town in this capacity. And my hat's off to all of you for wanting to give back to the community. And I'll also go one step further and tell you that Neil and Melissa both reached out, looking to volunteer on additional committees moving into 2024. And, you have not only mine, but the entire borough's thanks for doing it. Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else go to the borough? Sure.
I would just like to thank the business community for providing the trolley this past Saturday for a small shopping Saturday. I had the opportunity to ride the trolley. I know Councilwoman Cole did it. It was a great way to meet our neighbors, but it was also a great way for non-residents to see our town, what our town had to offer. And I look forward to our next event, December 8th, for the Christmas tree lighting, the menorah lighting. Santa arrives. There's going to be a horse and buggy. So it's a great way to show what our town has to offer.
At the trolley event, Small Business Saturday, I bought, these kids were amazing. I got a Fairhaven Nights keychain. I had a sour cream biscuit. It was like a cookie / biscuit. Fantastic. I had they took white chocolate Hershey Kiss and melted it down to create a new bar with sprinkles. Amazing. And this young girl, she was so brilliant. She took sea glass and she green sea glass and she decorated the Grinch on the sea glass. I bought one of each of those. I thought it was fantastic. Wow. It was great. Go to the borough. Anyone else out here? Yes.
Michael DiMaselli, 522 River Road. You do have a brush and leaf committee question or new policy, but I just want to thank everyone. I'm so excited about this opportunity to represent our town, and I can't thank Neil enough for being such a wonderful running mate. And he's right, walking around town. I love our town. I love it even more, meeting everyone. And we have so many cool people in town who know so much. I mean, I've learned so much and I'm chomping at the bit to get started because there's so many cool projects that we're working on and so many things moving forward. So thank you all. Question about leaf and brush. So if you don't choose to get the bin, then you don't get the opportunity to put out brush
Correct.
weekly, and is it weekly? Is it
Bi-weekly.
bi-weekly? Okay. And do you know how much they cost, or what's the kind of ballpark?
So I do know, I just don't want to reveal yet until we set on the can, because I don't want to be false.
Fair.
What I can tell you is based on my conversations with Fairhaven Hardware, 25% lower than Lowe's and Home Depot is usually where the number falls.
And I don't know if there's anything we've done like this, but I just wonder about the people who maybe can't afford it, but do want to participate in this program. if we will consider, I don't know what to be done, I'll learn more about it, but if there are things we might consider for that, because I'm sure there are people who might want to do this that maybe.
We can talk about it. Maybe there's an opportunity in that program that if you purchase a can, you can donate an additional amount towards something like that. Might work. I think that's a good idea. Yeah.
All right, and I'm very obviously supportive of this project because it's stormwater and everything, the health, safety and all that, so thank you all.
Thanks. Thank you, Michael. Anyone else? I'm looking at you, Pat. Anything else? No, anyone else and anyone online?
Online. Saying we have Chris Hempstead.
Okay. You're on, Chris.
Okay, it just took me a second to unmute. Can you hear me okay? Oh, thank you. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council, and thank you, Borough Attorney and Teresa for hearing me out last month or last meeting, whatever it was, on my concerns about, our diversity and making sure that we show our diversity in town. So thank you for incorporating the Christmas tree into the invitations. Again, it's very important. But, I wanted to come not only to thank you, but just to also just remind you that just like everyone on the dais, just like everyone on the committees, it is a volunteer effort. My concerns are not, insignificant in a sense. I want to protect the town, against anything that could possibly hurt the town and protect our diversity and protect our ability to have multicultural displays, to teach the children about it, to learn about it. And I think the worst thing that could happen is we can't do that. So again, I want to thank you for your time and your understanding and, and your consideration in the matter. So thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Chris. Anyone else online?
Susan O'Brien.
Hi, Susan.
Good evening. I have a question about the latest property tax assessment.
What's your question?
Overall, for the whole town, what percentage did it go up?
I'm not sure that I could answer that.
I'd
off
have
the
to get
cuff.
that from the tax
We
assessor.
have to come back to you on that.
And it's not, there'll be an overall, but it's done by neighborhood based on sales.
No. You had evaluation last year for all of the town.
Right.
And you have one for this year. What's the percentage increase?
We just don't, we just don't have that off the cuff. We can get that for you, Susan.
And it's also subject to appeal.
And that's why I want to know about what is the increase for the total town so that I can compare with what my increase is.
Sure,
Yeah.
I understand. We'll get that for you, and Teresa, you can email that to her.
No, sure.
We'll get that emailed out to you. Thank you, Susan.
I guess so. Brian Rice.
Hey, Brian.
Hello again from my family room watching football. I just wanted to follow up with the proposed ordinance. How about a novel thing, take out fishing and crabbing? And don't just target that user group to the dock. I mean, it would stand to reason that if you just made this ordinance to some council members mentioned, it's just make an ordinance that is a little bit tighter so that Chief McGovern has something to go on for all the open space and parks and recreational areas that we have in town, and not just make it, specifically targeting and fishing and crabbing. I think contrary to council that it does open up a huge potentially can of worms that it could end up in a legal dispute battle with the state. It's happened before, and I don't want to see it happen here. They will get wind of it. I have talked, I'm not talking out of school. I'm not talking, about things I don't know about from especially a legal perspective and a sportsman perspective. Take that wording out and just use it, as an overall blanket ordinance for all our open space.
Did we consider that?
We just had a whole conversation about this.
Okay. I.
Well,
I
we
mean,
did,
you know
we
where
did,
I
Mr.
am
Mayor,
on
but
it, I didn't read it, so I guess I.
we did have a
Again, this-
discussion about it, but I don't believe it was brought up to take out the verbiage of fishing and crabbing.
Yeah,
And
we
just,
had that conversation.
okay,
Yeah. And again, I'll just throw out there, not to continue this conversation, because I think we've squeezed as much as we can out of it tonight, but this doesn't mean we're done with it, and I think we can continue to improve it. You've heard my living, breathing document phrase before. Let's see what we have come June, July, and we'll go from there.
sounds good. Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you, Brent. Awesome.
Looks like. Replacement.
Hi, Ruth.
Good evening. I got in late. And can you, in one paragraph, tell me what this green can thing is and why I cannot go out and buy my own?
You're up, Joe.
One, you can buy it on your own. Two, it's going to support increase in services for brush pickup to twice a month between the months of May and September.
And if we don't do it, we don't get any brush pickup.
Correct.
Just during those months.
Sounds like a tax increase to me.
It's a cost neutral. We're increasing the services in a cost neutral way. We're doubling the brush pickup in those months. We're doubling leaf pickup. And then we're adding full cleanups in the fall and spring months to accompany.
And Ruth, I go one step. Ruth,
Maybe cost neutral to you, but it isn't cost neutral to the individual residents.
Ruth, incoming councilperson, DiMichele just brought up a potential idea for people that may not be able to afford the cans of us subsidizing or residents subsidizing those residents through some type of share program. So,
But up to this point, the town has had brush pickup. It has been included in our taxes. If we do the sweat, or if you have a landscaper, they do their sweat and we get our stuff out to the curb, we are entitled to have it picked up. And in this particular instance, it is no longer a normal included in taxes thing. And I resent that. I really do. I just think the
I see your point. How does it sound? How does a buy a can, give a can program sound like for residents who might want to
that is not the point. That is not
your point entirely. I really do. You're talking about diminishing services.
Exactly.
Yep, I hear you. And I was proposing.
If I cut down my brush and put it out at the curb, I want it picked up just like it has been. And I don't see any reason to go into this can business. I really don't.
we understand your opinion, Ruth. Anything else?
Not at the moment.
Thank you. Hope you're doing well.
Nobody else?
No one else?
Nope.
Okay, with that being said, we're gonna move towards executive session. The time is 9:03 PM. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you. Okay, the time is 9:24 PM. Do I have a motion to close this meeting?
So moved. A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Good night, Fairhaven.
You just love that.
Does anyone